What's up guys, welcome back to Pat Outdoors. This is gonna be part 4 of the 72 volt electric mini quad project. Today we're just gonna fully put it back together. I'm just gonna keep rolling nonstop till we get this thing back on the road. Just a quick recap in case you're new to this channel. This is my 2021 Kayo Predator 125 ATV that I picked up from Craigslist for $450, not running. I put some tinier tires on it and shorter suspension to lower it a few inches. And then we powered it with a Electron Co EMX 28 kilowatt kit. On the last video, we took it down to bare frame, added the battery tray, some motor mounts for the QS motor, finished the fabrication and got the whole thing refinished. We had to give it some time to cure before we put it back together, but I'm ready to get this thing fully back on the road. We're also gonna be working on some lighting today. I think this is gonna look super sick when we're done. If you want to see everything that was done from the very beginning, make sure you check out the part 1 to part 3 videos. And if you want to check out any of the parts that we're using for today's project, I'll have the full build list in the description below. So I was previously using a Mototech Pro stock rear shock, but I ended up swapping it out for an even shorter shock. I think this one is like another 20 millimeters shorter, so it should definitely drop the quad about another inch for the rear. I'm not going to torque down any of these rear axle bolts just yet, since I still need the rear end to be able to swing back and forth to adjust the chain tension once we get all that on. I also want to make sure that it is perfectly straight before we do that. Once we get the chain aligned and tensioned later on, then we'll put on the jam nuts. Before we continue, I just want to do a quick rundown of the powertrain that I'm using in case you're new to this channel. This is the Electro & Co. EMX 28 kilowatt kit, which is technically meant for a full-size dirt bike. It's using a QS 138 V3 motor, Voltal EM260 controller that already comes pre-tuned. And then I'm just using an Amorge 72 volt 40 amp hour lithium battery pack to supply it with the power that it needs. And then the EMX kit just came with these switches, voltmeter, and a Suron throttle. Super easy kit to use. I had this on my YZ250 previously, but I'm going with a different setup for that. Before we clean up all the wiring, I'm gonna continue and do the chain, and I'm actually gonna swap out this front sprocket. Since this is technically geared for a dirt bike, the gearing is actually super short for my setup. Since this is usually installed on a bike that has a 18 or a 19-inch rear wheel, and we stepped it down to some 8-inch wheels, we're definitely gonna have to make some adjustment to the gearing to make it a little bit less extreme on the lower end torque and a little bit faster on the top end speed. If you are interested in getting more information on Electro's EMX 28 kilowatt kit, I'll have it linked in the description below. You can also get yourself 5% off anything from Electro & Co. using discount code PATOutdoors5. We're just stepping it up 1 tooth from 14 to 15 tooth for the front. I don't really like making big changes with gearing without at least testing it out. Oof, that's gonna look so dope. I cannot believe how direct fit this aftermarket light bar is. I didn't even have to modify the brackets that came with it. That actually worked out really well. But this is designed to run on a 12 volt system since it's designed for a car. So we're gonna be putting in a voltage step down converter on this quad. Another thing that we're gonna be installing is an LED underglow kit by Nylite. I think this is definitely gonna help the quad be more visible at night, which will not only be safer, but I think it's gonna look pretty dope. Here's everything that came with the Nylite Underglow kit. User manual. This is the control module that controls everything. The 4 LED lamps, which come with some pretty long harnesses. And then 2 sets of pads for the backside of the lamps. 4 are gonna be thicker and rounded on the backside, and then 4 are shallow and completely flat on both sides. We're also gonna be using a generic light switch. All this does is complete a circuit when you turn it on. An inline fuse holder with a 10 amp fuse, and a Pro Chaser voltage step down converter. This is gonna convert a 72 volt input to a 12 volt output. So 72 volts is gonna go in the red wire and 12 volts is gonna come out of the yellow wire. Now I'm just gonna run all the wiring to the top front side of the frame. Then I'm gonna have everything connected to the module that's included. So I've been thinking about a way to clean up this area since a lot of this additional wiring is going to sit around the battery area, along with the phase wires and the controller harness are going to sit between the battery and the controller. I just don't want the top of the quad to look like a rat's nest. So I actually got myself a sheet of Kydex, which is essentially just hard plastic that you can form with heat. I'm going to try to make some sort of top fender just to clean things up. This is actually my first time working with this type of material. My buddy Justin suggested it since he uses it for a lot of automotive projects. Looks just like plain plastic, almost like ABS material. The instructions are saying to heat up an oven between 300 to 375 degrees until this is pliable, and then I'm going to lay it on top of the quad and see what we can form out of that. I just put it on a baking sheet in the oven for like 2 minutes at 325 degrees. Right now, it is still pliable. Okay, we're definitely gonna have to put it back in the oven and heat it up some more so it's a lot more pliable, and then rush down here before it stiffens up again. I'll tell you what, that is an expensive piece of plastic, so I definitely don't wanna waste the sheet that I got. And just like that, it stiffens up so quickly. At this point, I can pretty much trim the edges how I want. I can also take a heat gun if I want to reform the edges just to conform to the frame a little bit better. I'm gonna take that off for now while we finish doing the wiring. I guess one thing I could do in the future is just shorten all the wiring for the lighting kit. It'll definitely get rid of a lot of unnecessary harness that we don't have to clean up, but I really do not feel like soldering 16 wires right now. So I'm just gonna do that at a later time. Priority is making sure that this thing actually works. I just mounted the light module on top of the battery using 3 heavy-duty Velcro straps, which are rated for like 10 pounds a piece, so this is not going anywhere. Now I just gotta connect the 4 LED lights one by one. And these connectors seem like they would be weatherproof since there's a rubber O-ring gasket that goes around the connector, and then you screw them into each other. At this point, we've already finished all the wiring for the controller and the motor along with the LED Underglow kit. We just need to hook up a 12-volt power source for the headlight and for the LED kit using this voltage step-down converter. Here's a simplified diagram of how I hook up a voltage step-down converter to run 12-volt accessories on any of my bikes. Basically using just these 3 components: an on-off switch, an inline fuse, and the converter itself. So I always get the power source from the positive and negative terminals on the controller, which are hooked up directly to the battery. The power source gets an inline fuse going to the voltage step-down converter, and then I just hook up a on-off switch in between. The on-off switch wiring color really doesn't matter. All this does is complete a circuit whenever you turn it on. So when it's turned off, there's 0 connection between the battery and the voltage step-down converter, so it doesn't draw any sort of power. And then when you key it on, it just completes the circuit, so there's power and ground. So 72 volts goes in and 12 volts goes out through this yellow wire. I do share a ground between the battery and the accessories. So these are the 2 wires that we're going to be connecting to the LED kit and the headlight. And here's what that ended up looking like. So on-off switch, all that does is complete a circuit, 72 volt power source, ground. These 2 are going to hook up on the positive and negative posts on the controller. Inline fuse, 72 volt goes in, 12 volt goes out on the yellow wire, which turns into red at this point. I should honestly just pre-wire these since I can pretty much use the same exact thing on any 48 volt to 72 volt setup to power anything that's supposed to run on a 12 volt. We should probably test everything out before we cover it for the last time. So, voltmeter showing 83.6 volts. So we are fully charged. On-off switch. Look at that. I'm gonna download the app for the Nightlight LED lighting so I can adjust whatever color I want it to be, how bright it is, and if I want it to pulse with the music on my phone. I just swapped the lighting over to purple and turned up the brightness, and this thing is looking super dope. You definitely can't miss this quad on the street at night. So for safety purposes, I would say it is pretty visible. Now that we confirmed everything is working, it's time to clean things up. I'm gonna trim these corners from this fender just to make it look a little bit sleeker. Then I'm just gonna be using a file sander to cut the edges. And there she is, guys, fully put back together. I've been waiting to get to this point for weeks now. I just gotta do one last thing before we can take this thing out, and that is to correct the wheel alignment. Since we lowered the front end and made a change in the suspension geometry, I noticed that the front wheels are actually towed in quite a bit. It handled very funny last time we took it out in the snow. I felt pretty sketched out going past 25 miles per hour, simply because the steering wanted to push one way or the other. So if you look closely, they're both tilted inward. So I'm gonna adjust the tie rod ends to shorten them evenly on both sides to bring the back of the wheels. So my goal is to have both front wheels pointed as straight as possible to achieve zero toe, just to minimize the amount of drag when we're going higher speeds. Wow, turning just a little bit moves the wheel quite a bit, as you can see. I'm just gonna do my best to eyeball it as zero toe, since we obviously don't have an alignment rack at home. On a car, we'd be hooking up sensors, checking the camber, caster toe, SAI, and tracking changes on a screen to make sure that it gets within factory specs, but just gonna have to keep it old school today. No, I'm kind of glad that we have the quad on this mat, so I can kind of use the edges as a guideline. Very important to lock all 4 jam nuts on your tie rods. You don't want any steering components going loose, especially when you're out on the road. I'm using the edge of the mat to compare with the edge of the wheel, and it's looking pretty good. We can make adjustments over time as we see how it rides. Oh, look at this thing Nate just built over here. What is this?
It's just the Xylator with the Electro & Co. Powertrain on it.
Electro & Co.? Or is this the one?
And it's got the old school noisy cricket.
Dude, this is too perfect. It's about the same size as the quad. So how much is one of these?
It's like $600 or $700, and it comes with a little cheesy 2-stroke.
You mocked up like a battery tray, Sur-on battery?
Yeah.
Are you using a chai on there?
Yeah.
What are we pushing?
Whatever that one motor can do. I forgot. It's like 17 or 20 kilowatts. But
oh man, we're going out for a cruise. Dude, this is not a bad option for $600, $700 brand new. I bought my quad for $450 not running and had to strip it down and get it painted and whatnot. But brand new with like spherical bearings, tie rod adjustment. Not a bad starting point. We could probably even swap out these wheels and tires for like go-kart hubs.
Oh, yeah,
and do the sleeves, which I kind of want to do with my quad eventually. Since this is the first time this thing's leaving the garage since we reassembled it, I'm going to just start off in the middle setting and try to get used to it before I turn the power all the way up. I also want to make sure that the alignment's legit before we hit higher speeds. That thing was like popping a wheelie just now. Alignment's definitely a lot better than it was before, but it still feels a little bit dirty. I'm going to continue to dial it in before we do any sort of crazy speeds. Dude, I haven't even touched half throttle yet, and this thing already goes over 40. The front end definitely wants to pick up when you pass half throttle. One thing I'm not too happy about though so far is the suspension that I put on here. Feels a little bit springy on the back end. I think I'm going to swap that out for some sort of D&M suspension with better dampening. Yeah, it's got torque, and that's just a little bit more than half throttle. I want to hammer it, but I'm scared. Dude, this thing is fast. And that thing's no joke either. I kind of want to race him. Man. That is too much fun. Oh my God. I think I got the gearing perfect to maybe hit around 50, but it's still a ton of torque down low. Whew. I kind of don't want to go much faster than that until we get the suspension dialed in. I really don't like this rear shock. This thing is crazy. I should have built one of these sooner. We hit 49 miles per hour there before I let off, but it gets there so fast it's ridiculous. I've been waiting so long to take this thing out. It's been over a month since I started this build, and we're finally here. Yo, could I make it under this thing? That has got to be the greatest thing about having a mini quad. Oh shit! Oh, this thing slides. The ground clearance is definitely too low though. Yo, that shit looks sick. Dude, these are way too much fun. I'm so glad we put these together. This has got to be the best duo for DIY projects. And we pretty much put them together from scraps that we already had. You know, these are just parts that I had on my electric dirt bike, my YC250, and then these are some of his Suron and Razor parts mounted on a $700 Amazon cart. And do you have any regrets whatsoever? No. Dude, I kind of want to build another one, but I can't wait to swap out to the 11-inch go-kart wheel set with the PVC slicks for the rear so we can slide these things around a little bit better. Right now it's got way too much traction and so much torque down low that it's a little bit sketchy, to be honest. I think if I stepped it up one more tooth, it'll probably go like 56, but I really don't feel comfortable going that speed in this mini quad, especially with that rear shock squatting pretty easily. I'm gonna swap that out for a D&M and then tweak the suspension alignment a little bit more, and then I'll feel comfortable going to higher speeds. How's your kart feeling?
It feels great. It's fun.
Dude, you look like you're having fun. You're tearing those up. That's the only thing with these Amazon carts is the tires that they come with. They're pretty much like lawnmower tires, and you probably have less than 30 miles on this thing, right?
Oh yeah, probably not even 20.
Damn, and your tires are gone.
No, I gotta figure something out.
Dude, that thing is so sick. That is so much fun. You want to try this thing?
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do what you just did, but I'm probably. Yeah.
All right, let's try this thing out. Oh God, that rear brake is sketch. I can definitely get used to this. Oh yeah, look at that. I gotta get myself one of these too.
Uh-oh. Oh, your chain fell off. My fault. I was having way too much fun with your cart.
Dude, you're fine. If it didn't happen to you, it would happen to me.
Well, it was fun while it lasted. All right, we're gonna head back to Nate's house so we can grab my car, and then we're gonna throw his go-kart in the back.
So unfortunately, we had to cut today's ride short, and I completely forgot to put the power in the highest setting. So we're just gonna have to save that for next time. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you like this kind of content, want to keep up with some of my projects or some of my reviews, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn your bell notification on. But this is gonna be it for today. Thank you for watching.